Coogs House. All right, we're approaching the NFL draft. The first round is tonight, and Houston has one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL draft by all consensuses. So where is Clayton Tune going to end up, and why isn't he higher?
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach, Parker Ainsworth, to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater can't stop by, please be sure to subscribe down below. That way we can get the latest on the Cougs into your newsfeed each and every day. We appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. That's where you found us again. Yeah, I see you nodding every day. Yeah, we're here every day. I see you. Again, we are approaching 1,250 subscribers. We've been doing a giveaway every 250. We're giving away one of these hats that I have on with the Go Coug on the front and the Locked On with Go Cougs on the side. You like all that kind of stuff. Be giving one of those little dry fit hats away at 1,250. So hit subscribe to make sure we get there. And then make sure that you hit comment and like down below to make sure we know you're entered. If after listening to this whole episode about Clayton Tune and where his prospect looks like or what his prospective stuff looks like for the NFL draft, you have nothing else to say about football, tell us if you wear socks with your house shoes. All right, so today is a full Clayton Tune preview day and kind of previewing the NFL draft this weekend. Clayton's a long time, he's going to be the kind of guy that 10 years from now feel a little nostalgic about for the navigation of Houston the last couple of seasons. But he also is projected in all kinds of different places to fall all kinds of different ways. So in the first segment, we'll talk about him as a prospect, and it'll be a little long admittedly, but talk about like what scouts see, like, dislike, etc. The second segment will be places that I'd love to see him land because they're good spots for him. And then the third segment is going to be spots where he could end up. He's projected to maybe end up. I'm like, no. All right. So first, let's start with the way the rest of the world sees Clayton Tune. He's a 6'2", 220-pound quarterback with a 9 3/8" hand. That's across from thumb to pinky. Runs a 4.64 in the 40-yard dash and a 37.5-inch vert. For reference, in all those combine measurables, that 40 is faster than 86% of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Vertical is better than 97% of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. His broad jump, which escapes me at the moment, was also in the high 90 percentiles, and his three-cone drill, so similar to his 40-yard dashes, in the 87th percentile. His height, however, is shorter than 67% of NFL quarterbacks. Not too short to make the league, but exactly in that bottom third. As far as like weight, which is important when you're thinking about the guys that are hitting quarterback quite frequently, are like 300, 350. He is in the bottom 44% of the NFL quarterbacks in weight, or would be. His hand is similar, like he's just a little bit smaller guy. Arms, wingspan, etc., all in that bottom 45 to third of the entire NFL if he were to get drafted. And so the see guy's a little undersized, but not so much that he's like not going to be drafted, right? And so while he was great for Houston in so many ways, there are pro scouts that are kind of weary about those kinds of things. But the things they really like about him are all the things that are much harder to work with. I mean, he is a veteran guy, played a lot of snaps in his 5 years at Houston. Leadership, demeanor, he took over the Derek King situation when he just stepped in right away. And I think people still see that as like a big maturity moment from a young age. It's also worth pointing out that he is that above average athlete, even if his size and strength, or size and weight, I should say, is maybe, below par, below the average in the NFL. I think people were surprised when it was 4.64 40. You remember when I told you in season that Dana should run him more because he is fast. I wanted to run all kinds of RPOs off the quarterback power, that kind of stuff. I didn't get it. Maybe we'll get this fall with Donovan Smith or Lucas Coley. But I do think that his athleticism, and he's got more wiggle in the back hat, so the pocket and that kind of stuff, than I think people necessarily got to see at University of Houston. Because while we like to talk about improving the offensive line for Big 12 play, for what it's worth, they graded out tremendously as an offensive line in the American Athletic Conference last season, not just like they grade out tremendously across the entire NCAA football as far as like analytical percentages go, as far as being right place, right time, the right block, and that kind of stuff. And so he didn't have to show off those tools a whole heck of a lot while he was at the University of Houston. But people are saying that he can and will be able to do that at the next level. He's incredibly accurate deep and in the middle between the hashes. I saw one scout point out that he does not miss balls between the hashes, meaning that those tighter windows with lots of bodies in there, he's really, really accurate. People are worried about his arm strength and getting out to the far sidelines on routes that aren't like just post corner kind of stuff where it's just put it up in a trash can where it's really, really high arcing. On more rope kind of stuff, the sideline, I think people worried about his accuracy. He missed outside a lot, so that's why he's still in the top 10 quarterbacks. He missed inside, that's a pick, right? Missed outside, it's incomplete. More often than not. And so I think people still say like that's not the worst thing, but it's certainly something that's hard to work with because defenses kind of can load up the middle of the field and make you throw those out-breaking routes if that's your weakness. He has a quick release and good feet, balance, and base. And then obviously the numbers jump off the page. He threw for over 11,000 yards as a quarterback at Houston. Only 3 guys have done that at the University of Houston. They went all the quarterbacks that have come through, all the great college quarterbacks that come through. Only 3 guys have done that. Case Keenum being like 18 does, right? But like you catch my drift. His junior season, he threw for 68% completions, 3,544 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 10 picks. Senior season, similar, 67% completion, but threw for 4,074 yards, 40 touchdowns, and again, still just 10 picks. So bigger chunk plays, more touchdowns, and same low interception number. Big comparisons for him are guys like Gardner Minshew, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, that was leading the San Francisco 49ers throughout the playoffs until he hurt his elbow, and Houston's own Case Keenum. Each of those guys, if you are interested in like why those are the comps, are a little bit smaller than you might have wanted, but smart, accurate, strong, and if your starter goes down, you're like, okay, we got Gardner Minshew for a couple games, right? Okay, we got Case Keenum for a couple games. Okay, we got Brock Purdy for a couple games, right? In like consensus mocks, I'm seeing him picked as low as the 7th round, like the Pittsburgh Steelers area of the 7th round. I've seen him as high as the 5th round with the New York Giants on big boards and big companies. I don't need to give them their 2 cents. You catch my drift there. I've seen him consistently in that middle 6th round, even being picked by like the Dallas Cowboys in that area. And so interestingly enough, I think he does get drafted. And I say to say that, you know, we've seen a lot of Houston Cougars maybe go undrafted free agent, sign a good deal, show off in camp, like, hey, I really am what I look like on tape, and then make the NFL. I don't think that's going to be his path. I think he really is going to make it and get drafted and get to go to camp as a draftee. And I will say that it's important to look at where he has worked out. He's worked out for the Giants, Saints, Bucks. He also worked out for Dallas, Houston, and Cleveland, if I'm reading things correctly and remembering off the top of my head correctly. But across the board, there's some of those that stick out as better options to me. So I want to talk about those in the second segment. But first, we got to tell you about our buddies at Built Bar because, frankly, I'm getting a little hungry. That's why my like words are off some, I guess. But I'm also looking for a delicious snack, and I don't want to sacrifice a taste and still get good tasting protein bars and good tasting filling snacks. That's why I'm looking for a Built Bar as soon as we're done recording this episode. It's the best protein bar out there. Built, you got to try it. If you're like me and you want to get healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you: Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing. You won't believe that they're good for you. You've got to try this. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein in most bars. And now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, while you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff. If you're close to Sam's Club and running, grab a 13-bar box of hit flavors like peanut butter puff, peanut butter brownie puff. That's a lot of words. Or churro puff. Easier to say, and I love the way that one tastes. Trust me and thank me later. Again, I am an Almond Joy kid, so I am a fan of the coconut almond. I'm telling you, go do it. I'm telling you, if you can't get to a Walmart or Sam's Club in person, go to built.com. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about where I want to see Clayton end up here, because I think that list, frankly, is longer. I think Clayton Tune's going to have a long career in the NFL, even if the majority of it is holding a clipboard and wearing a baseball cap. And that ain't all bad, folks. That ain't all bad. The first place I want to see him potentially land, because I've seen it mocked a lot, but also I think it's a great landing spot for a couple different reasons, is the New York Giants. The New York Football Giants are head coached by Brian Daboll, who I'm going to call a quarterback whisperer, because if you remember, one, Josh Allen, like NFL MVP caliber type guy, Josh Allen, right, was once upon a time very, very inaccurate. And then Brian Daboll became his offensive coordinator. And then he was really, really accurate. And then he was like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for a while. And then Brian Daboll went to the New York Giants as the head coach. And they had this guy that got drafted at Duke named Daniel Jones. And he was kind of a laughing stock in the NFL for a lot of ways, because like, why is this guy an NFL quarterback? Why did they take him in the top 10? Why did And last season, Daniel Jones is great. Daniel Jones is more accurate than he'd ever been before, much like Josh Allen grew in accuracy. And coaches that know how to develop accuracy in guys are hard to come by, because it's not easy. It's mechanics, it's vision, it's tape, it's all kinds of aspects, and a coach has to understand all of it. And I trust Daboll to do that with one Clayton Tune. The other thing I want to say too is that on that roster, Danny Dimes is a high-paid quarterback, but certainly not a finished product or an unbeatable guy on the depth chart. So you could see theoretically potential battles for spots, because again, they paid him like the man, but everyone knows like he is not a perfect quarterback and he's still very much flawed. I could see them keeping Clayton Tune over Tyrod Taylor because he's a young guy with upside, whereas Tyrod Taylor has had his own injury history and stuff like that. I do like Tyrod in that system for what it's worth. Then the other thing I want to point out is that in the backfield next to Clayton, if he's in the game, is a guy named Saquon Barkley, who is a really, really good running back. And that makes every quarterback, especially a young quarterback's job, a lot easier. It also means that it would like kind of pack the box and open up some of that outside stuff. Though I mentioned Clayton has a harder time throwing. They're looking to draft receivers in the top end of the draft, and they're also mean Clayton's coming in with some talented wide receiver guys on a roster. It kind of could like build up that chemistry. They don't have those currently, though, so I guess part of my grade on New York being a good option for him is completely dependent on that. So maybe that changes. But I like the Giants for him a lot, and if they could snag him in the 6th round or something like that, that'd be great. Again, I saw people projecting them to take him as high as the 5th round and some stuff. That'd be pretty strong. The other team I like is the Saints. And the Saints would be a great pick for him because I think he's really good in the year 2 of his rookie contract. Because right now, they are at this logjam in New Orleans where they have Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, and Taysom Hill. And that's a lot of quarterbacks. I know you're like, I can see you nodding. Parker, that's too many quarterbacks to be also drafting Clayton Tune. But each of those guys is going to be looking for an extension or a new contract in the summer of 24, the offseason of 24. And if Tune is on the roster, I could see them saying, we're going to dump money into Jameis or Derek or whatever and keep Tune on the rookie contract and cut the other 2 guys. And I think that's the way he fits into that system. And he'd be a year in there, and he'd obviously be a backup practice squad guy, maybe even initially. But if he can stay with the club and get to know staff, etc. I mean, Ronald Curry, their offensive coordinator, worked under Sean Payton and has the same kind of offensive creativity if given the tools. They have Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, and they may end up getting Michael Thomas, but that's still up in the air, right? And so it could be a great situation for him. And again, while it looks like an overcrowded quarterback room, if you read between the lines, by like February of 2024, it might be a fairly empty quarterback room, right? So that may be a good spot for him in the down the road. So that's why I think I like them for him in the now, because they could keep him around until then. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers obviously have a rather large hole to fill, like a goat-shaped hole to fill, right? And Tom Brady leaving, but they decided to fill it with Baker Mayfield. And Baker Mayfield is a similar quarterback to Clayton in a lot of ways. I actually like Clayton's decision-making better sometimes. He he's the less of a gambler and more risk averse. I was about to mix those two up. Baker Mayfield has been hurt and has not been the same since his injury. He went to the LA Rams and was kind of a backup that helped them win some games or whatever, right? And he's now going to try his turn as a starter in Tampa Bay. There's no reason that it doesn't fail, right? There's no reason that he does not mess up this thing in Tampa. He might not just not be the same guy. And any system you draw up for a quarterback like Baker, the system will also work for Clayton because, again, they're both about 6'2". Baker may actually be a little bit shorter. They're both kind of wiggly in the backfield, and they both put the ball over the middle of the field particularly well. I think that that's a good spot for him as well. You got to also remember that does – I mean, that's Godwin and Mike Evans, and that's as good a wideout pair as you could realistically want for a young quarterback. The offensive coordinator is an older guy named Dave Canales. He was in Seattle for a long time, which kind of takes me to my next team, and that's Seattle themselves. Geno Smith is an older starter. And, there's a chance that last year was a fluke. There's also a chance that he didn't play that much longer. Like, how much longer does he really have in the tank? I can't imagine they keep Drew Lock around as a backup because that's a rather expensive backup. And so Clayton Tune would be a cheaper option for the franchise, and then he'd be in a position to really play some. That's a team that on offense has DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker the third, I think, right? That's a great trio of skill position guys to put around a young quarterback to make his job a lot easier. And their offensive coordinator, that again, the Tampa Bay one worked under at one point. The Seattle offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, is a Sean McVay guy. And McVay has always done well with quarterbacks. I don't think it's any, accident that Smith did so well with Shane Waldron there. It's kind of the same kind of, trickle down effect. And I like those places a lot for Clayton. I think Clayton could be really successful in each of them. I also think it's worth putting out there, I should say, that Clayton's first stop in the NFL will likely be one of many. Think about the way Case Keenum has played out in the NFL, right? And so while he might not end up in a situation like any of those to start, I guess I would also throw in Dallas. Now I'm thinking about it. And here's what I'd throw in Dallas. Dak Prescott is always potential to get injured. CeeDee Lamb is like the NFL's version of Tank Dell in a lot of ways. He's just a little bit bigger. And without knowing exactly what their offense will look like next year, I have to say that I think Clayton could excel in a lot of that stuff using the slot receiver and tight ends. They also have Tony Pollard in the run game. And then again, Dak is a potential injury liability. Anyway, all that to say that as I continue to add to this list, Clayton Tune will be a long-term NFL backup quarterback, if not more. And I feel very confident in saying that. So while I like those landing spots the best for Clayton, I'm not horribly worried if he doesn't end up in one. And I think that's really because he is a very great locker room presence, to the point where people are writing that up as part of his write-up after the combine interviews, right? And he's not a dumb guy. He's going to end up in a situation, he'll play out his rookie contract, and he'll find his way at the next free agency signing to somewhere where he can get on the roster and continue to do this until he gets a chance to really get in the game. Kind of like Case Keenum did at the start of his career until he got to Minnesota, where he got to really play, right? And so I think that while there are other options that are better, some options are better than others, I think that he's going to be okay wherever he ends up because he does have that longevity potentially. That doesn't mean the third segment I don't want to talk about some places that would not be great for him right away, because there are some spots that just are not quite up to snuff or not quite the best spots for Clayton. So let's get into what those look like. The first one, and this hits too close to home, but the Houston Texans do not need Clayton Tune. And I'll say that to say that this is assuming they go quarterback at the second overall pick, right? But if they go quarterback the second overall pick, they're going to have whoever that is and Case Keenum, right? They just signed Case Keenum to bring him back to town. And that is the two different types of quarterbacks: a solid veteran, good leader, backup guy, and a young prospect they've invested in and as a first-round draft pick would have to give a contract to. And as much as I like Clayton, no head coach and GM tandem, much less Caserio and and D'Amico Ryans in his first year as an NFL head coach, right? They're not going to give the job to a rookie like Clayton if they have another rookie on the roster that they've invested money in. Think about like how great Kirk Cousins has been. I mean, he's been an NFL starter for a long time now, right? But the same thing happened when he and RG3 got to Washington. It was like, okay, Kirk Cousins is fine, but look at what we just drafted. And RG3 was a rookie of the year kind of candidate. I don't know if who Houston drafts at the second overall pick will be a rookie of the year type candidate. He might be, right? However, I do know that they're going to get the same kind of time and effort invested into them, and you're not going to see that invested into quarterbacks later in the draft. And that's why I don't want to see them take him later. Now, if they were to trade back and go skill positions or defensive guys, and then like be looking at quarterback in more like the 4th, 5th round, that might be a different situation. And frankly, I'd love to see Keenum mentor Clayton. I just don't think that's what's going to happen with them and their pick. I don't think they get out of the first round without a quarterback. They may trade back, but I don't think they get out of the first round without a quarterback. The other really, really bad option to me for Clayton is Cleveland. Cleveland has had him come in for a workout. Cleveland appears to really, really like him and is projected to take him on several mock drafts. I don't think that's a good situation for a late round, low contract rookie quarterback to be in, because they've invested a lot in Deshaun Watson. And frankly, I don't see them giving up on Deshaun Watson anytime soon. That's not to even point out that they have Josh Dobbs and Kellen Mond on roster right now as other quarterbacks. But they put more into investing in Deshaun Watson with all of his faults and flaws than anyone has ever put in terms of guaranteed money to a quarterback, right? They're going to play him, right? They're going to play him, and they're going to play him no matter what the play looks like for at least another 2 or 3 seasons to make sure that they're playing this out, right? For what it's worth, they also have a fairly run-happy offensive coordinator in Alex Van Pelt. They have great running backs, and so I get why they do that. And while it would make Clayton's job easier, that doesn't, to me, strike as like a team that's going to develop a bunch of young quarterbacks, because they've got the vets, they got the run game, they got the expectations. Now they need to get rolling, right? They got a great defense with guys like Myles Garrett and stuff like that. And so I don't think that's a good landing spot. And it's interesting because I keep seeing it projected as a spot for Clayton, and it's not one I like. Now, I know there's a lot more spots. I mean, there are 32 NFL teams. If you've got one you think I omitted or one you think that I'm wrong on, please tell me at Painsworth512, PAINSWRTH 512 on Twitter, Instagram, and all of your social media handles. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You can also comment on the video down below and tell me there as well. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. It's great to see and hear you. Again, if you're looking for a second listen of the day, I'm going to recommend, well, I could weirdly recommend Locked On Tar Heels. So I'm actually on that, talking about a guy I coached against in high school, or I coached against this high school that just signed with Carolina. But I actually want to recommend Locked On Big 12, because they're doing a great job of tracking the entire conference right now. So make sure you go check them out at Locked On Big 12. Josh does a great job with them as well. So go check out one of those shows for a second listen. Thanks so much for making us your first